Did you know that these two kings had their own time zone? But how on earth did this wacky concept come to be? And how did it then continue to function for over 50 years in the middle of the English countryside? In this week's Royal History documentary from History Calling, I'm going to tell you the story of Sandringham Time, a marvellously bonkers phenomenon that only a playboy prince, who ironically already had too much time on his hands, could possibly have dreamt up in an effort to create even more. Once upon a time, there was a man called Edward. Well, his family called him Bertie, but to history he's Edward. Edward just happened to be the Prince of Wales, son of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert, and in 1862 he was bought by his mother a lovely-looking estate in the Norfolk countryside called Sandringham for a mere £220,000. He then pulled down most of what was there and rebuilt it, largely as it stands today, though there were some additional changes over the years. It's rather famous and you may have heard of it. It tends to pop up on the news on Christmas Day. Now, Edward really liked hunting and was keen to squeeze as much time for killing stuff out of the day as possible, so it was a bit of a pain to him that some daylight hours were considered unsociable for this pastime because people wanted to do things like sleep and eat. It was a real first world problem, but Edward came up with what I assume he thought was a stellar idea to fix it. He would create his own time zone, a little bubble where the normal rules of the land didn't exist. Now, for anyone else, this would at best cause raised eyebrows and a suggestion to get a hold of yourself, or at worst, a trip to the psychiatrist. But in Britain, especially if you're rich, you're never, never crazy. You're just eccentric. Crazy is for other people. Also, if you're royal and living in the 19th century, you can pretty much do whatever you want. For further evidence of this, I suggest you look up Queen Victoria's long-term reaction to the death of her husband, and you might start to understand why their son thought nothing of colouring outside the lines, as it were. Speaking of Edward, he ordered that at Sandringham the time of day would be 30 minutes ahead of what it was for everyone else in the entire time zone which encompasses Britain and Ireland. Why didn't he just order that hunting start and finish half an hour earlier in the day, you ask, even if it was a bit unsociable, and leave the clocks alone? Why indeed. I suppose that would have been too sensible. Some have mused that perhaps this change was instituted in an effort to get his notoriously late wife, Princess, later Queen Alexandra, to her appointments on time, but no, it was definitely a hunting thing. The exact point at which Sandringham Time was invented isn't clear, but it was certainly in place and widely known about by 1877, when the Victoria magazine said the following in an article. The dinner hour is 8 London time, 8:30 Sandringham time. For the Prince will have Sandringham time half an hour fast, the better to ensure taking time by the forelock, whatever that means. This strange little quirk continued unabated for decades to come. Here you see an announcement for a play which was to be staged at the house in January 1887, with curtain up to be at 10 o'clock Sandringham time. In 1899, a house party on the estate lost one of its attendees because, according to the Times newspaper, the Duke of Cambridge was not shooting in the morning, for shortly after 1 o'clock Sandringham time, he was to be seen driving towards Wolverton Wood with some of the royal ladies. Of course, despite the best efforts of everyone involved, having a tiny independent time zone to the north of London still caused problems for those who were never quite sure if they were in that time zone or not. William Boyd Carpenter, who was chaplain to Queen Victoria, recalled the following anecdote in his memoirs. I had often met King Edward at Windsor or at Osborne when he was Prince of Wales, and he had invited me to preach at Sandringham from time to time. I remember that at my first visit, I was anxious on the Sunday morning to be at church in good time. I watched the clock, and when it left me, as I believed, about 20 minutes before service, I started for the church. I had hardly set foot upon the threshold when I heard a voice calling after me, "Bishop, Bishop!" I turned and found that the Prince of Wales was summoning me. "You are going too soon," he said. "There is nearly an hour before service." Then my mistake became clear. I had forgotten the trick of the Sandringham clocks, which were kept half an hour in advance of the real time. Theoretically, it was very easy to readjust one's ideas about time or to reset one's watch, but practically one found that one was the victim of a haunting doubt whether the clock or watch one looked at represented Greenwich or Sandringham time. Poor Carpenter. I'm sure he wasn't the only one caught out, and I suppose it was better to be early rather than late. Edward came to the throne in 1901, and it is at this stage that the website Historic UK says Sandringham Time became official, though, as I've just shown you, it was decades old by that point. It continued on through his reign and into that of his son, George V, who ascended to the throne in 1910, becoming the second king to have his own time zone. All good things, and the crazy ones too, must come to an end though, and in 1936, George, and he and his father's time zone, bit the dust, but not before causing one last bout of confusion. King George died at Sandringham on the night of the 20th of January 1936, and the announcement informing the world of his passing included the following line: "Death came peacefully to the king at 11:55 p.m. But was that 11:55 p.m. UK time or 11:55 p.m. Sandringham time? To this day, no one is entirely sure. His time zone outlived him by only a matter of minutes. The new king was his eldest son, called David by the family, but known as Edward VIII in the history books, and he was not a fan of Sandringham time. That very night, before the body of his father was cold, and as one of his first actions as king, he had the clocks put back to Greenwich Mean Time, in line with the rest of the UK and Ireland, and other places in the time zone too. I do know it's not just the British Isles. Onlookers were appalled. Archbishop Cosmo Lang grumbled that, after midnight, he ordered all the clocks, which by long custom at Sandringham were kept half an hour in advance of real time, to be put back. I wonder what other customs will be put back also. So by 1936, something which was plainly crazy, though harmless, had become beloved. Of course, Edward's reign would prove to be one of the shortest in British history, lasting less than 11 months and finishing that December. Yet when he abdicated the throne so that he could marry Wallis Simpson and passed his crown to his younger brother, George VI, grandfather of King Charles III, Sandringham time was not brought back. Perhaps the man who became the Duke of Windsor after his brief stint as monarch wasn't the only one who thought it was all a bit preposterous. He was just the one willing to put a stop to it. So that's the story of Sandringham time, and of the two kings who had their own time zone. If you enjoyed this little video, one of the shorter ones I've done I must say, please give it a thumbs up as this really helps it out, and subscribe to the channel with the notification bell switched on so that YouTube lets you know when I upload. You can also find me on Patreon, where I provide bonus material including early access to ad-free videos, mini podcasts, blog posts and more. I also have an Amazon storefront where I've gathered together recommendations for history-themed books, TV shows, movies and more. Both are linked in the description box below for you, as is my Instagram account. Thank you too to those of you who donate to the channel using the super thanks button underneath videos, as this is greatly appreciated. Let me know in the comments if you think Sandringham time was a quaint little eccentricity that should be brought back, or a daft and pointless idea that we're well rid of. To learn more about timey-wimey stuff, try this video next, or for additional information on the House of Windsor, check out this playlist. I'll be back next week with a new video, and until then, keep learning.